Town of Prescott Valley Work Study Agenda December 2nd, 2021. Call to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kinzinger.
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt.
Here.
Mayor Plaguda.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And before we get going into discussion items, usually we don't do that, but special day today. And there was rumor out there that Councilman Packard was turning 80 years old.
Oh.
But then he's turning 79.
I'm in my 80th year.
In my mind, either way, it's old, and we should probably recognize it, right? So with that being said, we had a delivery of some cupcakes. And the fact that we don't get to celebrate birthdays too often up on the dais, and I think it's pretty significant for Councilman Packard either way. I think we should at least owe him a happy birthday song. So if you would please join us in singing happy birthday to Councilman Packard.
Stand up.
So stand up. Happy birthday
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Don.
Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Say a few words, Don. It's your birthday, buddy.
Don. Well, as I enter my 80th year, I can't remember what happened in the 79th, so we'll just leave it at that.
So, again, I think it's just an amazing accomplishment, Don. I know you probably have the heart rate of a 21-year-old with the number of miles you walk every day. So I'm sure you're going to be around for many
I just
more.
got 3 out this morning. I was tired.
That's probably 3 more than I've walked today. So, all right. With that being said, we're going to get down to business, folks. Item 3A is the update on the development agreement for the YMCA. Damon, Dr. Bennett. Welcome, guys.
You want me? Mayor Palguda, good to see you. Council members, good to see you. We have been busy, which is a good thing. Lots of due diligence still being done. As you know, we're actively engaged in phase 1, which includes aligning prospects for fundraising, looking at our plan, making sure that we have the right people on the team to do the fundraising. And so we had a nice little meeting last night with our campaign cabinet, and it looks like we are heading in the right direction. And it's important to understand with fundraising, which you guys all know, because you raise money for your campaigns, that 5% of fundraising is the ask. 95% of fundraising is developing relationships. So there are people that have significant amounts of money that may be interested in our projects, but we may not have the relationship just yet, but we're getting there. So before that, we did a whole bunch of due diligence, setting up an LLC, and we're also doing things called the new market tax credit, which Wayne is going to explain because he knows it in and out.
I'll be right back.
But the other thing is that there's a couple of paths to take. When you work with the municipality to build the YMCA, there's a couple of paths that you normally travel. And one of those paths is the municipality says, we're going to build this Y. We're going to outfit it the way you want it outfitted. We're going to turn the keys over to you, and you're going to run it. And you're going to be the community center, and we're going to have an intergovernmental agreement with you, and you're going to be that. This path that we chose is that the town will support the YMCA, but the YMCA has got to go raise money and build the building. So this path certainly takes a little bit longer. But what I can tell you is that we're actively engaged in phase 1. We feel good about where we're at, and I'm going to turn it over to Wayne.
Okay, this will be a 3-hour lecture on new market tax credits. No, you don't even want to go there. And just in very brief, since he made me do this, a new market tax credit is a source of funding at a federal level that requires a significant amount of due diligence from the very beginning. The fact that our site is in an opportunity zone enables us to aggressively pursue this particular option. And the amount of funding that we ultimately anticipate receiving in the event that it's a competitive process, so there's no guarantee that we will get it, but in the event that we do, it will be a seven-figure number, and depending upon the value and the scoring and so on and so forth, it could be, we anticipate in the mid-seven-figure numbers relative to this particular project. But it does require a great deal of due diligence that has to start a couple months ago, and that's when it started. We began developing pro forma and case statements and so on and so forth. So it's running parallel to our fundraising effort. I'll just echo what Damon said. As you well know, we embarked upon a series of methodical studies to determine the needs in this community, the appetite for YMCA and our programs and so forth. And the results of those studies were all compelling. We then contracted with a professional fundraising fund development company out of Phoenix, Cagney & Associates, who have a stellar record in terms of raising funds for philanthropic organizations, including YMCAs. We are in the quiet phase of that campaign where they do their demographics and their due diligence to identify the potential within this community. And we are receiving very, very positive feedback. Our campaign cabinet is currently chaired by Brad and Michelle Fain. We have brought together a very strong leadership team, and we are cautiously over-optimistic. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, we have questions. I just have a comment. Thanks for doing what you guys are doing. I don't think a week goes by where I don't get a comment or a message asking about what the YMCA. I'm sure council here has also had that. And I just tell them, hey, it's a long process, and we are getting there, and we have complete confidence in the process. So again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may, not a week goes by. I have a lot of patients who they're like following, they're all excited about the YMCA, and they're like, Dr. Bennett, when are you turning around? And I'm going, it's okay. This is a quiet time. Believe me, when this due diligence is done and we take the next methodical step, it will be good to the degree that we take the steps that we're doing now. So we are intentionally quiet, and I want you to understand that.
Excellent.
I have a quick question. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there a chance that the 24 to 36 months of phase one might go sooner?
Chance.
Okay.
If you know somebody with $5 million, that would help things a lot.
Okay. I'll make phone calls. And then where it says whether it's currently feasible, know that it's feasible.
Question again?
Well, because our staff report says in this phase, it's to continue working with professionals to determine whether it's currently feasible to construct the YMCA.
Okay, yeah. So we originally we had a concept design. We hired Grow Development with the funding from the town of Prescott Valley. The town of Prescott Valley hired our selection, Grow Development. And at that time, they gave us a design concept where they took the needs assessment that was done, and they said, okay, if this is what your community wants, this is the kind of facility, and that's what we are intending to build. However, we need to raise the sufficient amount of funding in order to do that. Right. And so as we move through this, we have, metrics of how we're doing on this.
Start over.
New market tax credits. And so we fully intend to build the facility that we started out to build. But we cannot commit to that until we really know, that just is irresponsible, and that's not how we roll. So.
Right. And then the road, we're going to build the road? Or are they going to build the road?
No, Town of Prescott Valley will be building the road.
Okay. And then that's going to go in the 21-22 year? No. Okay. We just budgeted for it in that year. Okay.
Not yet. I'm glad you asked.
Thank you.
Have we raised any funds as of this point, or are we still anticipating partnership?
So our fund development target is $17.5 million. And we are, with the participation of the town of Prescott Valley, we're about $7.5 million there, and that's before we even start the program. We have identified the fund development professionals. They have ratios where they identify prospects and they say, okay, in the $5 million category, in order to raise one $5 million gift, you need 3 candidates and blah, 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 and they have ratios. And a lot of the diligence that we have been doing is researching the philanthropic community. The YMCA, we built the YMCA in Prescott years ago. And, it's a big community, and we know where a lot of the funding comes from, and you build those relationships. And you use professionals to do that tactfully and appropriately. And based upon the ratios that they're giving us, they're actually very optimistic. And so we don't want, everybody sees the YMCA through their own lens. Last night at our meeting, one of our cabinet members said, my children learned how to swim at the Y. Another one said, I learned to swim at the Y. And others said, well, it's childcare that I'm here for. Well, there are so many things that the YMCA does that we really want to develop a relationship so that when we talk to somebody about the YMCA, it's not just because their experience of how the way they look at the Y. We want them to understand the dramatic community impact that this will have. It's far greater than any one of those percents. So at this point, we are intentionally not asking our major donors until we have had the right conversations so that they know what they will be contributing.
Sure. Thank you.
Councilman?
Quick question, and again, thank you for the help that you're doing and giving us this information tonight. You had mentioned it's a competitive bid going to the federal government. I know working with with federal government, wheels never run fast, but what do you think, what kind of a time frame would it be to you would have an answer on that?
So, it's, every year they go out to bid in January. In that process, it gets complex, but we have to compete with what are called CDEs, and they are the ones who get the market tax credits, and then they sell those, and people get tax credits back, and so forth. And that's about, we will actually get funding at about 7 years from the time when we actually know that we have won that process. And we have a consultant whose job it is to do that. He's a specialist in new market tax credits, and he has undertaken 31 of these competitive projects, and he has been successful on 31 of them. And many of them have been YMCA. So you might want to comment on more.
Yeah, Ed Crouch, he's our consultant, and he's been with us from the beginning, and he's 31 for 31 about getting these things. But our job right now is to put together a compelling story of the why. And so that story usually, or you get a lot of points when you check mark partners. Are you partnering with the hospital? Are you partnering with the college? You're partnering with the town? Are you doing other things with youth agencies? And so what we're doing right now is putting that first blush of that competitive or the compelling story out to the CDEs just to let them know this is coming down the pike. We want you guys to take a look at this. Some of the CDEs are more focused on job creation, food scarcity, child care, what have you. But a lot of them will go, yeah, I like that. And some of them don't like doing projects in the urban area. They want to do stuff in rural areas. So we think we have a good chance because we're a large project in a rural area that I don't think has gotten any, to my knowledge, any new market tax credit funding in the area. So that's our job right now, is to put that compelling story together, get it out to the CDEs early so that when we go to apply, it's not going to be new news to them.
Thank you.
Anything else for these gentlemen? Again, guys, thank you very much for all the hard work.
Appreciate your support.
Where it goes?
We're always a go until a no, right?
Go.
Go until a no. Moving on, item 3B, Police Department Operations Review. Mr. Davidson, are you going to lead us off on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we're going to load up a PowerPoint, and I'm going to invite up Mr. Milstead to give our presentation, but let me just lead off with it. With our new town strategic plan and the goals that have been set by the council on, how do we make sure that we are the best of the best in all divisions of our town organization, and how do we provide great service to our residents? It's always a good opportunity when you have transitions to be able to just sometimes take that step back, do a deep dive into where we are, where we want to be, identify the things that we have been doing well, and we want to make sure that we not change in those areas, but where can we tighten up and continue to aspire to make sure that we are recognized as the model police agency in the state of Arizona. So to that end, we had the opportunity to have Frank Milstead, who's with Big Leadership Consulting. He's the owner and president. But Frank has quite a pedigree in law enforcement, had served as the colonel for the Department of Public Safety, and also as a former police chief with the city of Mesa, and a long career in law enforcement. So Frank had an opening and was willing to really kind of lend his expertise to us, and has become part of the PD team. I know that Frank can probably share. He's gotten a lot of phone calls, and I think it's been really good, the partnership that we've been able to have with you. So tonight is just kind of a summary review of some of the things that we're going to be working on for the future, also recognizing we are already doing some of these things, but I think there are some great aspirational things for our department, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Milstead.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. I appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, council members, Frank Milstead, it's a pleasure to be here. Short presentation on what we found. Just so you understand, I spent the afternoon with the command staff and with leadership from the Police Association, giving them the same briefing, a lot more protracted. I spent about an hour and a half with them earlier today, and it was a good time to really spend some time with what I discovered in the process. Running a police department is probably one of the most complicated jobs in the world. I always tell people it's like being a chef. You make a great meal and you solve a crime, or you provide some great service, and then tomorrow people are hungry again and they want to eat and they forgot what they had yesterday. So it's always, you don't actually solve crime, you impact crime, you minimize crime, but there is always crime and there's always things to do. So when we started out, we had 4 broad categories we were kind of looking at. We started out with the idea that it would be policy, personnel, liabilities, and efficiencies. And as we got deep into this, it morphed into this more of 8 kind of topics. And it's the organizational structure and stability of the department. It's leadership development and accountability, police oversight, policy and oversight, the liabilities that exist, community policing and crime reduction, efficiencies, equipment, and safety and wellness. And let me reassure you that everything that is in the report is something really to celebrate, in the sense that there is no giant red flag, there is no huge thing that I found, and the report was written to identify areas of improvement and not to be an indictment of anything that is currently going on in the agency. However, there are some areas that I think warrant discussion, and we'll go over a few of those right now. So the first thing was leadership, and it's leadership development and accountability. Under that is the succession plan, and then the ownership and accountability. And let me just talk about that for a minute. One of the things that I was given when I got here was the investigation that happened under the prior administration and what went on there. And there were a lot of red flags in there. There were a lot of breakdowns in leadership and breakdowns in accountability and what went on by reading through that report. One of my biggest concerns when I got here was, what does policy look like? What does the culture look like? What are we doing to make sure that we're meeting national standards as well as the needs of the community of Prescott Valley? And there is no succession plan. One of the union sergeants today that I spent some time with, he says, look, I took the promotional exam, so they didn't go outside. He goes, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a sergeant. No one trained me to be a sergeant, but I took the test because I thought it should be somebody internal and somebody who put their blood, sweat, and tears into this community, into this organization. I would tell you that there needs to be a training program for first-level supervisors as you identify people that you want to promote, is to send them to a supervisor school. I actually talked to Gerald Monahan at the college and said, hey, how do you feel about putting on a supervisor school and a leadership school? And they agree they need it, and they would love to do that. And I think there can be some partnerships with some of the other communities here, some other police departments where they're doing those things. But just get people ready to lead. And I would tell you that I've had all these different ranks in my career, and you're always really good at what you do, and the next challenge is leading and holding people accountable and making sure people's successes are met, that you know what your people's needs are and where they're going. So that succession plan, I think, is big. I think that if you look at ownership of problems, I think if you look again at the investigation from the prior administration, there was a lot of people hoping that things were going to get better and hoping that things would change. And hope is not a great leadership strategy. It's the most powerful human emotion, I would argue. People live their whole lives on hope, but when it comes to leading police agency, it's holding people accountable, and it's setting reasonable expectations and standards, and it's making sure that things are okay and leading by example and putting yourself out there to ensure that your people are cared for. The wellness of the organization really starts at the sergeant level, where people feel valued and that they matter and they make a difference, and it works its way all the way up. I would also tell you that there needs to be a policing plan, so everybody in the organization understands what the goals of the chief is, and that's going to come out of requirements out of the council and out of the town manager's office, but a policing plan that shows what we're going to do over the next 12, 24, 36 months, and then those goals work their way down into everybody's performance evaluation. From the officer, sergeant, lieutenant, commander, everybody has a goal within their plan to meet the leadership plan of the chief. And the chief sets those standards, but without people helping him implement those and setting that culture, it will not work. It has to work its way down through the entire organization. The next piece was liabilities, and I'll give you a quick example. If you're working criminal investigation, we talk about search and seizure, and you do a consent search of a residence or a building or a structure or something, you fill out a form and the person signs it and they understand that they can revoke the consent and they can stop. In the patrol operations, they're doing consent searches of cars and other places. There's no form. There may be an audio recording now and then. Somebody might do that. There may be something like that. But one day, one of those guys is going to find something that is substantial, that is important, and it needs those things need to be documented. So just search and seizure training. I actually talked to the chief today a little bit about the idea that somewhere down the road, you guys might want to contract with a person who does police law. You know, I always had a general counsel. I always had somebody in my office that helped me with keeping track of current trends, laws, does law bulletins, and does training on search and seizure. So having a contract with some organization where you have law enforcement or a lawyer to give you some of that advice, I think would be important. Use of force, it just needs to be tracked. They use a system called IA Pro and Blue Team. It's just not used to its potential. And it can be used as an early warning system for police accountability, misconduct and things. And so by putting that use of force into a system where it can be queried and used for later for training, for leadership issues, for constitutionality issues, things like that. Deconfliction came up, and deconfliction is when it's really to protect officers from themselves, where you might have an officer we call blue on blue situation where you're working a particular address or property or investigation. There's a company that it's risk safe. It's a regional information sharing system that's managed by RIMN. It's free. Everybody in the state uses it. And just to make sure that when these entities, there's a lot of specialized entities within Prescott Valley, that they're putting things into risk safe to make sure that somebody else isn't working the same program at the same time. Those types of deals. There's a push to have confidential informants within the agency. That is a very high risk, high liability operation when you manage informants. There is concern at the county attorney level that they should just use the Prescott Area Narcotics Task Force to manage CIs, but it's something that they want to do internally, and I just think it's something that if you are going to do, that you make sure that it's managed and overseen at the highest levels for all kinds of liability and other issues that go along with managing people who are criminals and then making them work for the state to work off charges and things like that. It's interesting, one of the people I interviewed, and I think this would, again, gave me an instant reassuring of what was going on, is I met with the county attorney, I met with Sheila Polk, and my questions were a lot, but basically centered around the idea. I said, are you getting good quality police reports from the organization? Are they crossing the bright line for a prosecution? If there's furthers for information, are they responsive and giving you that follow-up information so you can charge the crime? And she said, I don't know. And I thought that was the best answer ever, because if she knew, it was probably bad. So to say I really don't know is a real positive thing. And I said, well, when you check and you understand, get back with me. She called me back a week or two later, and she said, no, we're doing all those things. My attorneys have no issue with the department. They get good response. They get good reports. So that was a huge thing, because a lot of times that response to prosecution gets forgotten, and so good information to have. Efficiencies, physical responsibility was something that we talked about, internal and external communications, and I think it's important for the chief and for the executive team to spend time outside the pyramid of the organization, working with the council, working with community leadership, doing your programs that you do out in the community. I think that's another thing that you all should be incredibly proud of, is the community support you have for the police agency. They believe in their officers. They have good rapport. Even though you guys have 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, they still are happy. And I just know that every time I drive down the street, I go 25, 25, 25. Yeah, so anyway, we all know about what happens when you speed. The litigation, the integration of the professional staff, there's always an inherent problem between professional staff and law enforcement. There's pay discrepancies. One of the things that's not in place is a step program that everybody follows, and if you do that, you have step pay and you have step things that go on, and that keeps a lot of equality and equity there. When I was at Phoenix PD for 25 years, anything that the union negotiated for, the professional staff received, whether it was insurance or pay. When I got to Mesa, that didn't happen, and it's very, very hard for leadership to manage, because they already feel as though they're treated differently than the sworn staff, and then to pay them or to give one person a raise and not the other is a challenge. And when I talked to the professional staff, they felt there was a division there. They felt that what sworn staff would get overtime for, they would have to flex hours. So I just think it needs to be looked at and look at the equity and make sure that people feel valued. And again, that wellness of the organization starts at the top. There was a discussion about internet crimes against children, having somebody in that task force. I think you can look at some of the regional opportunities instead of specializing even more. I've been very critical about how specialized this agency is for the size of it. It seems to be working, but obviously there creates some response pieces to go with it. So I would just watch the specialization within the organization as you move forward. One of the things that came up with SWAT, and I think this is one that's got to be talked about again with leadership within the city or within the town and within the department. Right now there's about 23 people of the 83 sworn individuals that are part of the SWAT team. It's a huge expense. They're spending, it looks like, north of maybe $500,000 for the SWAT program. You have basically 25% of your agency involved in that SWAT operation. Last year, I think they had 3 or 4 call-outs, and if you follow standards, national standards, which are set by the National Tactical Officers Association, a true SWAT member has to train 20% of their time. And training is true training. It's not that you're doing SWAT operations and that counts as training too. It's actually true training to keep your skills right. They say that they're meeting that, and I would tell you, if you're doing training 20% of the time, it's impacting patrol operations, it's impacting investigations for a very few number of call-outs. I think you can look to Arizona Department of Public Safety to help you with SWAT call out. You could look to Yavapai County. You could look to a regional team. There's just a lot of other things that are out there, and there's shared liability that goes on with that. But it also, again, is a very emotional issue for the department. The people that are part of that team, they like being part of that team. It's a badge of honor. It's something that's fun to do. So, I mean, the training is incredible. It keeps you real and focused. So you just have to know there's downsides to those type of changes. But it's something that if you had that money to spend elsewhere, what would you do with it? And then this is kind of, we kind of hit on this already a little bit, but to me, this is the big issue within the agency, and it's that it's where leadership intersects with the liabilities and the efficiencies of the organization. And again, it goes back to what we talked about a little bit in the beginning, is everybody has to be involved in the plan of the department and keep that plan purposeful and in focus. So everyone is setting a culture of world-class police service every day. That everybody's looking for ways to save money. Everybody's looking for ways to help further other people's careers and ideas so they're successful and they feel valued. And I can't stress enough how much I really think there's a missed opportunity to provide leadership training to people as they promote, and then through in-service training, provide that leadership training as they move up the food chain and into higher positions where you impact more people. And I told them a story today briefly about as you promote, you get more and more people. When you're a sergeant, you may have 8 people. When you're a lieutenant, you may have 15 or 20. Well, when I was the director for the state police, for DPS, I had people all over the state. And what might have been a good decision for Yavapai County may not have been a good decision for the Navajo Nation or for down in Yuma County. So you affect different populations different ways, and through leadership training, you can help identify that. And through speaking with your people, you can identify faults that exist as you're trying to make changes within the organization that are substantial, that they don't adversely affect a population that you hadn't thought about. I think you all should be reassured that the men and women that are here are dedicated. There are divisions within the agencies that can be resolved, I think, through better communication, external, internal. I actually suggested to Chief Martin, the acting chief, that to put out a video every so often. I used to do them about once a month to talk about things that were going on. It wasn't scripted, it was just an off-the-cuff video. So people in the agency, no matter what shift you work or what part of the town you work in, they get to see the chief or the lead, the executive, giving direction and talking about issues, so the story that you tell doesn't get screwed up somewhere down the line, and the cops can go, no, I heard the chief say that, I saw the video. And it's an easy thing to do. It's not a challenge, and it really helps solidify that communication. And the chief executive can out-communicate all of the bad rumors and everything else that goes on. And there's again, being a police officer or running police agencies like being a stay-at-home parent, whether you're a mom or a dad, there's a new challenge every day, and just because you solved it today doesn't mean there won't be a new one tomorrow. And it's just part of living in that storm and providing that service. I'm going to stop there because I think I'm running a little long, and I have a habit of doing that. I don't know a lot of short stories. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to open up to questions, Mr. Mayor, for you and your council members. If you have any, please, sir.
Sure, sir. I appreciate the time and the effort you've put into this. It was something that was, in my opinion, long overdue and it kind of just was convenient that we ended up with Mr. Davison, and the timing just kind of worked out there. But it's something that is not uncommon, correct? This is something that an agency or a town or an organization would recognize, hey, we want to be as efficient as possible. Let's bring in an outside set of eyes to evaluate what's working and what's not working, correct?
Correct.
So.
And Mr. Mayor, I would tell you that more people should do this. And I made the comment to the executive team and part of the union today. I grew up in the 25 years I spent at Phoenix PD. I went from a 21-year-old man to a 47-year-old man, and went through a bunch of ranks. And as you guys know, Phoenix is struggling with retention and with morale, and there's a lot of us who were in leadership positions there that could come back and help identify issues and be a source of reassurance to the men and women there that they matter. And unlike you guys who are very much seem to be cohesive, they have a divided council which goes against them with what they do, and it challenges the police department and the service they provide. But when the men and women wearing uniforms see this unification in the council, they see a community that supports them, it's really easy for them to come to work every day and to provide that world-class service that you guys are looking for. And to have someone come in, and again, I got to tell you, they greeted me with open arms, and I know it had to be uncomfortable for them to do that. I know it was a challenge for someone to come and look in your sock drawer and tell you what color socks you have and which ones you should throw out. But they did it, and Jeremy and James and the lieutenants, they were all incredibly opening and welcoming to me and to Paula Beach to come in and look at what's going on. And they've been very receptive to the report, and I hope we wrote it in a way that they look at it as a way to celebrate the successes they've had and to better finite resource the things that they have to spend, the money they have and the resources they have with human capital.
And I know when we came in during this time, it was turmoil. It was turmoil when Interim Chief Martin took over, and he was trying to settle the boat and just kind of make it so that the wheels weren't coming off the bus.
Yes, sir.
I know it's been refreshing for the past six and a half months to have no complaints come over to our office at all. I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of council, but I know nothing has made it my way, at least, in regards to issues or concerns. How would you rate the morale of the team at this point since you've shown up? Because like I said, it was turmoil. Things happened. We lost an officer. The chief had gone. It was didn't really have it in the rule book to kind of follow a set of directions. So from your opinion, which you have a ton of experience, I'd love to hear what your thoughts were.
So instead of me giving you a number, let me give you a quote, Mr. Mayor, council members. Everybody here, this is from a sergeant, everybody here knows what needs to be done to make this more cohesive and more of a family environment. They just have to allow the chief to do it. And there was a perception under the former town manager that the things couldn't change and they had to stay the same, and decisions couldn't be made. But I will tell you, whether it's Jeremy or you, it's somebody from the outside with experience, that if you give them the autonomy of some level to run the department and make those decisions and bring those people together, they will. Because I can tell you, I identified no cultural issue that is not able to be overcome with good leadership and commitment. And again, I think it starts with the commitment that the manager has given to the department and the commitment that you guys continue to show. And I think one of the things when I got out of interviewing all of you was there wasn't a lot of communication between the previous chief and the council, or the desires that you guys had in your council district or as a body were not being listened to or recognized by that. And I think that's important, that whoever the chief is, that they understand that the influence that you provide is something to be listened to and implemented, or if it needs to be adjusted, that we figure out how to get people to yes. But the organization itself just wants solid, cohesive change. And one of the professional staff who is very intimate with what goes on in that area of the chief's office, where the chief's office is, she just wanted consistency, and she just wanted someone to come in and be there every day. And the change of 3 chiefs in the last 3 years has been daunting for a lot of those people. And it was also the other thing that was really warmed my heart was, this is professional staff. They're saying, I don't think it reflects well on the agency when there's so much change. And they cared about the agency as a whole and the entity and the perception of the public and everybody else of having that consistency and that stable environment. So I'm telling you guys, you are in a good place to provide stability and growth.
And I want to touch on something you said about our officers and our staff. I would put them up against any other law enforcement agency in the state of Arizona. I believe that they are tip of the spear, and they are amazing. And it comes down to a point where, what do we have for our leadership? And I hate to throw out a little, a history lesson or whatever it may be, but it's all about a person or having a leader that can lead men and women. I'm sure back in the Revolutionary War, when George Washington was leading, a bunch of militia against the strongest army in the world, he didn't have, on paper, he didn't look like he was going to be that person, but he got people to get behind him, and he was able to lead them. And whether or not Jeremy becomes, I don't even know if he's honestly putting in for this position, but I just want to extend my thank you to you, Jeremy. You came in at a rough time. You had to keep the wheels on the bus, and I feel like that is exactly what happened. So at the end of the day, I think he deserves a little bit of credit for that.
Mr. Mayor, I couldn't agree with you more. And council members, again, the wellness for the organization, and I'm out of time, but if there's 4 things that the chief's responsible to do to make sure the agency runs well. And after that, it's up to the rest of the leadership to implement those agenda items and to make sure they're followed. Where there's breakdowns, it's not a breakdown in policy. Your policy is solid. Lexipol is a great opportunity. There needs to be training on the policy when the policies come out. And the personnel, the training, they're keeping good training records. They're keeping track of what they do. They're using training from other agencies that's been proven. They're using national standards. So all of those things are very stable and good to know for you guys to know that they're following national standards.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Colonel. I appreciated meeting with you when we met, and I appreciate your comments. I like that you put in some things that we were kind of already doing and some things that we maybe need to do. So, and that you said there weren't any red flags. A lot of this we need to look at coming up in the budget, particularly that, the step format is so important. That's something that I think we really need to have, and it goes right along there with the equity that you talked about. Because we don't want compaction over there. That's not fair. So, and then I too want to congratulate Jeremy and the men and women of the Prescott Valley Police Department for, righting the ship and just being there. Jeremy, you are extraordinarily responsive, and I really appreciate you.
Councilwoman.
Thank you so much for your hard work. This was not an easy assignment. It wouldn't have been for anybody that came up to the plate. And we just thank you so much for all of your hard work. And dealing with emotions is also very difficult situation, in that there was a lot of emotion in this. And I am very proud of our Prescott Valley Police as well, and have had personal contact with several of them recently, and I just couldn't be prouder of them. And I know that you have good quality people to work with here in Prescott Valley. And one term that you used was world-class services. And that is something that I think we have always wanted to achieve. It was always there. It was just hidden. It was buried. And I think that achieving excellence is our main goal, and having it rise to the surface. And there's pride in belonging to a group that excels. And I think that what you have produced for us will provide this opportunity to do that, for us to rise and to excel. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate your words.
Anything else? Sir, we appreciate your time, your effort on this whole process.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you again for the hospitality of the department and being open and willing to work together. And I appreciate the time with each of you. And as time goes on and you work your way through the report and maybe in a more granular detail, please know that I'm always available. I think almost all of you have my phone number, and I'll take your call anytime.
Excellent, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, item 3C, Local First Arizona Rural Development Update. Ryan, you going to lead us off? Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to let this come up. In the meantime, thank you for allowing me to present to you somewhat casually today. I was touring Winslow all day today, so it's been a a tour of northern Arizona here today. But I've been here before, and there are many of you that I know, and there are some that I don't. So I'll take just a quick minute to introduce myself and the organization, if I may. Local First Arizona is a statewide agency. We're best known for our local business coalition. So we have about 3,000 Arizona-based businesses of all sizes that are members of Local First. Over COVID, we were able to distribute about $14 million in small business relief funds directly to those businesses, especially in rural Arizona, due to our connections statewide. We act in a variety of capacities with our programming. We are best known for being a collaborative, action-based, and on-the-ground agency. And my team, I'm the Director of Rural Programs. We have a team of 6 that work in our rural communities on programs that revolve around strengthening entrepreneurship, strengthening connection to place, so pride in place for our rural communities. We have an entire workforce program in partnership with the state of Arizona. We work heavily in tourism in partnership with the Arizona Office of Tourism and our rural communities across the state. And then we also work on health and well-being programs, specifically usually that address food systems. So in that work, let's see if I can get this little puppy to work. We started to notice that it was really difficult to measure the work of community development. And you being in leadership in a rural community probably understand this. How do we prioritize what we want to focus on? How do we know we're doing a good job? And how do we move the needle in truly the programming that we do? And so coming to, I guess, rural in 2022, we wanted to come up with a tool that made sense of all of the work that's done and provided some benchmarks so that people could know what they were doing. And what we found is that I think this tool aligns really well with the strategic plan that Prescott Valley just completed. And so I'm really excited to talk with you about this briefly. It is a very complex tool. It's based on 5 different pillars of strength. And basically, we went in and we reviewed nationwide best practices in community development agencies across the country. And we said, what are you measuring? What kind of programming are you offering? And how do you measure when you do measure? And we wanted to simplify that. We wanted to be able to say, if we're truly going to go into a community and try to strengthen it as a whole, holistically looking at a community and saying, we're taking you from here to here, what are the areas that need to be strong to have a truly resilient community? And what we found, based on nationwide best practices, is these 5 pillar areas. So in business strength and entrepreneurship, right, what does your business community look like? How strong are the entrepreneurs? What's that fiscal economy look like? Community connection and engagement, right? Again, pride in place, places to connect with one another, youth retention, some of the very important pieces of charitable giving, the strength and capacity of nonprofits, etc. Talent development and retention, looking at the quality of jobs, the number of jobs, industry growth, and youth retention again here, quality of education. And then resource stewardship and sustainability. What are we looking at? What's our affinity to even thinking about conservation? What is our wealth, if you will, in resources, and how are we protecting that? And then finally, in health and well-being. When we go in and measure, we come out of this tool with these scores. And so these scores are not grades per se, but they're a starting point, if you will. So you look at it and you're able to get a quick snapshot. This is where we are, and we can remeasure to see we've actually moved the needle in these areas. So you get this output that is a score in each pillar area and then an overall strength score for the community. We hope this tool can be used to guide strategic planning. So you guys have already completed the strategic plan, but it also can be used to measure and provide metrics for strategic plans. And I'll talk to you a little bit specifically about how that can help yours. This could also be used as a guide for budgeting and policy. So if you're looking at this amount of input that's going into this metric and this score, you're able to kind of decide where money might need to go in your budgeting discussion along with policy decisions as it relates to the strength of your community. This engages you in a statewide network of resources, and I'll show you how through the output, which is the opportunities plan. And through the data, you get not only readily available data that's online, but also your localized data, which is really hard to get. For you, within the metrics within our Community Strength Index, we have data points that align with your goals, the high-performing team, water stewardship, quality of life, and prosperous community, already built in to what's in the Community Strength Index. And in addition, we're able to customize to add additional questions to make sure that when we go through the data collection of this process, we get to the heart of the data you need to make some of your decisions. What is that data? So over 125 data points are collected. Those are collected either online. We use resources like the resources that already exist, Center for the Future of Arizona Progress Meters, the Arizona Water Blueprint, Education Forward Arizona and their attainment statistics, obviously the census, and then the NTIA for broadband and some of the more technological data points that we're looking for. The key to this is we're not duplicating what's already out there. We're putting it into something that gives it meaning. And that's why these partners are all really excited about this tool is you can find the number, right, for certain things, but what does it mean when it's all compiled together? And that's what the index does. In addition to that, we do 3 surveys. So there's a very broad community survey that is implemented by Local First and our team, and that is to your residents through a variety of resources that get the feedback directly from the community on many of the points in the index. We also do a elected leaders and staff survey, so we understand your perceptions and some of the things that are going on at the city level, and then we do a business leader survey so that we're getting the perceptions of the businesses in lieu of where the strength is of this community. The output, this is a snapshot of what the opportunities plan includes. And so each pillar is laid out so that you can see what those scores were. And I know you can't read what that little tiny box says, but I'll tell you what comes out of this. So this is the talent development and retention score for one of our pilot communities that helped us launch this. And you can see that in talent development and retention, they're at a 56 to start, okay? Within that, there's 5 sub-pillars that are measured through our data. And those each have their own score. So you can really start to hone in on where in talent development and recruitment you're strong and where you're weak. That chart below it shows each data point within each of those sub-pillars so that you can really dig into, okay, what was being said? What is the perception versus reality? Do we agree with all of these statistics? And if we do, where specifically within this could we make the biggest impact the quickest? Okay, so all of that is provided to you and reviewed with you step by step through the process. And that's done for each pillar. And then finally, there is what we call the collective impact portion of this. So based off this pillar and the areas that we see as opportunities for your community, these are the agencies we know that do this work. They could be local agencies that we know that have programs that you can engage or implement. They could be statewide agencies. They could be federal agencies. They could be funding opportunities. And so all of that is in one spot so that you're not seeking some of the resources that you may not know that are out there. As a statewide agency that does this work every day, we know so many partners that are underutilized in the state of Arizona for our rural communities. So this will kind of align you right away with these are the people we could go talk to next and get implemented. And Local First will stay engaged as a project manager to ensure that that onboarding and that project moves for the remeasure period so that we can see that progress in that meter. It's a very complex program. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks from start to finish to get through every piece of this, from launch all the way to the opportunities plan and the strategizing behind it. And so that is one program that we thought Prescott Valley might have an interest in. The other that we really wanted you all to know about going into 2022 is our partnership with the Arizona Office of Tourism. Through their Visit Arizona initiative, Local First was awarded a grant to help continue to support rural tourism. And frankly, we have not gotten the final approval on that exact scope of work, but some of the things that will be included in that will be branding, which I know that you've embarked on recently. Graphic design to support branding. So if you've got a new logo, there may be assets and materials that you need to create to support that brand. Hopefully, if this gets approved the way we wrote it, this will supplement those dollars so that you don't have to spend as much as you might have to out of pocket on design. Marketing and communications plans. So if you're looking at a true strategy behind your tourism, we can help you with media placement, audience targeting, content development, and put that out as a marketing and tourism plan. We have the ruralarizona.com community profiles, which Prescott Valley does not currently have one on there. We've got about 25 communities that are on there. These are quality of life profiles that show your arts and entertainment, outdoor sports and recreation, entrepreneurial opportunities, events, history and heritage, all sorts of things that are in this profile. And in December, we're launching an Itinerary Builder so that people can not only go to that, ruralaz.com, but they're able to drag and drop and create an itinerary for the experience that they're hoping to get in that town. If you travel in rural at all, you know how valuable that is, because most of the time you drive through and you're like, I didn't see anything, it didn't look fun. But there's so many amazing things to do, so this really helps put it all in one spot. Small Wonders maps are a really cool asset. These are little CD size, if you remember CDs, CD size maps that have 25 to 50 businesses in them. We do all of the recruiting for those maps. We do all the photography, all the description writing, and then we distribute them through all of the Arizona Office of Tourism visitor centers. And so those are very popular. And then the Rural Business Academy, another program that we're launching next year, has two different cohorts that are in there that I think apply. One is the customer experience cohort. We do a secret shopping initiative for 12 businesses that participate. We go in with community members that want to participate in that as well. We secret shop, and then we customize a 6-week course for each business participating to help improve what came out of the secret shopping experience. The other one is digital marketing, another 6-week course that addresses digital marketing, where the businesses that participate walk away with a social media calendar so they know how to use Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, and what to post. All of this would be supplemented under the grant, and so I had hoped that we would know by now, but you guys jumped and let us come early, and so we don't have that answer, but I will keep you posted. Hopefully those are some programs that we could engage with in the coming year.
Awesome, ma'am. Great job. Mr. Davison.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to tie into this, because just so that you guys have kind of how this is all fitting together, because this is all really exciting. From the time that we spent with you guys talking about the strategic plan, if you remember, within the high-performing team, we wanted to create baselines so that we understood where we were with our community and where we are aspiring to be. So this piece will be able to, as you can see, create data points that we then can create action plans, whether it's through the budget, through staffing assignments, partnerships with the community. So that's kind of how this fits in. It also ties in with our tourism initiative. That was one of our big discussions, was how do we really grow our tourism base here in Prescott Valley? So there's a piece of that. And then she had mentioned the piece with the branding and marketing. So once we have that new kind of look and image, how do we then begin to operationalize it and get it out there, and then tie it all in together into a comprehensive kind of view of our community? So that's kind of how all these pieces are coming together.
Council, will you have anything else? Ma'am, great job. I think what you could bring to the table is, amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Moving on, item 3D, Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization. Mr. Gallegos, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Really glad to be here with you this evening. My back isn't very happy this week, so I may take a sit to do the presentation, so appreciate being here with you, though. Again, my name is Vincent Gallegos. I go by Vinny. I'm the Executive Director of the Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, or SIMPO for short. I put my contact information on here for all of you and for those in the public that would like to go to our website, look up additional information, or please, by all means, email me or call me so that we can talk more about anything that's covered in the presentation. Let me share with some of you that might not be familiar with what Metropolitan Planning Organization is, or an MPO for short. MPOs are not unique to Arizona. They're not unique to our area. They exist throughout the United States. They've been around since the late 60s, early 70s. Federal government decided that once urbanized area was established with a population of 50,000 people or more, that Metropolitan Planning Organization would come into existence. So as of today, there's a little over 400 MPOs throughout the United States. We have 8 MPOs in Arizona. I listed the ones that we have in Arizona. As far as transportation planning goes, we're multimodal. So we talk about planning for highways, roadways, public transit, bicycle, and pedestrian. Specific to SIMPO, our vision is to promote and maintain a regional coordinated transportation system for the safe and efficient movement of people, goods, and services. For today's presentation, I highlighted safe and efficient. That's something that is meaningful to all of us as we try and get around. We want to get around safely and efficiently. And then our mission is to use regional leadership in planning and promoting a comprehensive, again, multimodal transportation system. SIMPO was established after the 2000 census. The governor of Arizona at the time brought us into existence in the year 2003. We cover the urbanized area of Prescott and Prescott Valley, but then we also cover the planning area, which is essentially the Quad City area and the adjacent unincorporated Yavapai County area. So for today, SIMPO covers around 400 square miles, about 150,000 people. I serve at the direction of an executive board, of which elected officials from each of the Quad Cities and the counties have representation on. Currently, Mayor Palguda is on the executive board and is our current chair for this past year and this upcoming year. And then we also have a technical committee that staff works with to go through the technical process. That technical committee is primarily public works staff, directors, and so forth. Public Works Director Norm Davis sits on the TAC representing the town of Prescott Valley. And then a few years ago, SIMPO also created an Ecosystem Connectivity Mitigation Advisory Committee, or Ymca for short, which again helps with the mitigation of wildlife in the area, the environment as it relates to transportation. Funding. SIMPO is funded by the federal infrastructure bill that's generated a lot of news recently. The one that was just recently passed, but that's ultimately where the funding comes from for SIMPO to carry out the work of the MPO. Those dollars are administered through the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and the Arizona Department of Transportation. Primary expense of SIMPO is planning, and it's conducted by the staff and the consultants that we're able to bring in. We also have dollars that we have utilized over the years that can go towards non-planning activities and projects that would be considered construction historically, maybe traffic signals, roundabouts, or roadway projects. A couple plans and studies that are on our website that I would direct your attention to. I won't go into great depth today, but our Unified Planning Work Program is required by the federal government. It's an extensive document that is approved by the executive board, but it provides all the details of the narrative and the budget of where the money is spent for SIMPO. And then we have a transportation improvement program, which looks at our major projects over the next 5 years. And then the last thing on this list that I do want to really highlight for you all is a 25-year regional transportation plan. This is something, yes, we are required to do, but I'm very proud of it because of the work that goes into it. It takes a little bit over a year. It takes all the parties that are involved, from the elected officials, the stakeholders, decision makers, and most importantly, the public, to provide input. And what it does is it looks at our region and how is it operating from a transportation network standpoint. So where are we currently? What does our future look like with growth, population, and all those things that impact it? And what does the next 5, 10, 25 years look like? Keeping in mind that, limited resources. So it is a comprehensive document that we work through on a regular basis. What I would like to do now is highlight a couple projects that I believe are a little more Prescott Valley related, but as I go through this, again, I really want you to keep in mind, or I'd like to strongly encourage that I hope all projects we work on are helping the region, realizing that we travel back and forth all the time, so the people are using the transportation network we have. The first one, you may have been reading a little bit more news on this. It seems like we're stirring some real engagement on this first one, the Sundog Connector Design Concept Report and Environmental Overview. We're going to be issuing out a request for proposals, and I'm going to come back to this one in just a moment. I have a slide that'll help in case you're not following this one, but this is a major project we are focused in on, and I do want to give a little bit more information. The other project that we're just wrapping up, it's taken a little bit over a year, is our adaptive traffic signal study. In this adaptive traffic signal study, it's looking at 3 major corridors in the Simcoe region, one being Willow Creek Road in Prescott, State Route 69 between Prescott and Prescott Valley, and then Glassford Hill here in the town of Prescott Valley. This study, again, through Simcoe, has been to look at the existing traffic signal infrastructure and see what opportunities we have with technology. Is there a way to modernize what we have? Is there an opportunity for investment either by the town itself or by the region? But either way, is this another way to help with safety and capacity? So we are finishing that. I will say, to give you a little bit insight as to what's coming out of it, is our area may not be the prime candidate for maybe the maximum upgrade of traffic signals, but there are opportunities to definitely improve from what we have. So part of this study for Prescott Valley is working with the Public Works Department and is looking at signal timing along Glassford Hill, and that is a major part of this study, so you will see those improvements in the very near future. We are working on the State Route 69 widening in front of Lowe's between Prescott and Prescott Valley. It's a 1-mile widening of that bottleneck area. Lakeshore safety improvements. We're going to be pursuing some additional transportation safety funds that will help out that section for fiscal years 25 and 26. I'm proud of that because anytime we can bring in some additional dollars to help you out and to help the region out, it really is a proud thing that we have. State Route 89A, we're currently wrapping up a study on the eastbound on-ramps project. So as you go from Prescott to Prescott Valley, that is an ongoing issue and that it's a real priority. So we're finishing a study on that. Some recent studies over the last couple years is that interchange with Robert Road and 89A. We've done an alternative selection report. We completed a State Route 69-169 traffic interchange report. That report is now leading to what's going to be happening here in the near future of transitioning it into a roundabout. So again, our hope is that we're not just doing planning for planning's sake, but it's actually leading to projects. A few years ago, we did the Sarah Jane Lane Fane Road intersection report, 89A corridor study. So these are just some things to give you some history of where Simcoe has been involved. Back in the summer, we had a strategic planning retreat with the executive board, the TAC, and staff. Long story short, this is what came out of that particular retreat as our major planning project. So this year, we're focused on Sundog Connector, and I believe the next slide is where I'll talk briefly about that project. But that's our number one focus at this point. As soon as we can get that one in the planning process moving forward, the very next thing is the State Route 69 Master Corridor, which will cover from the intersection of 89 and Prescott all the way to 169 at the border of Prescott Valley and Dewey-Humboldt. But we recognize that 69 is a serious capacity, many sections over 40,000 cars a day. So there needs to be continued attention and improvement to that. So that'll be part of our planning process. The third thing that the group came out with was the need for 89A and widening between the intersections with 89 and Glassford Hill. So that'll be in year 3 for us. And then Great Western Extension will be in our 4th year, again another connecting road with the town of Prescott Valley and Chino Valley would be a new road. And then finally, State Route 89 Master Corridor Plan in the Chino Valley, Paulden area. So if I can back up to that, excuse me, Sundog Corridor project, if you haven't been following, the two intersections on both ends are in existence. They're improved. They exist. One is here in the town of Prescott Valley as you come in near the business area and near the Home Depot area. And then the other intersection that is developed is in the city of Prescott, where the new jail is being developed off Prescott Lakes Parkway. This road has been studied by the city of Prescott in 2013, would be a little around 4 miles, a little under 4 miles of a road. The previous study that was done about 8 years ago puts the cost of design and construction anywhere from about $30 to $40 million. So just a few miles, but expensive for a number of reasons. It goes through state trust, it goes through the city of Prescott, the town of Prescott Valley, Yavapai County, and there is some development in there with Yavapai Hills and also the Storm Ranch development. So where SIMPO comes into the conversation is there's a lot of moving pieces here, clearly, but as a regional planning organization, we're attempting to facilitate all those moving pieces. I am incredibly hopeful to this project in seeing some of those opportunities in federal funding that is now becoming available. I think we're putting ourselves in a really great position to do some initial planning work that could lead to the federal government really supporting this project in the partnership that's happening. So that's what's happening with Sundog Connector. We'll be bringing in a consultant to help us do a design concept report. That process will take about 12 to 18 months and should take place next year. Just two more slides, I believe. Public transit. This is big news for you all, and I'm very, very grateful for the work and the leadership that the mayor and council are taking with public transit. Again, part of our transit planning is dollars that come into the community for public transit. So we do have a couple plans that I've highlighted here. You're probably familiar that our tax dollars, when we go to the gas pump, come back for a number of things. One of them is public transit. And currently, Prescott and Prescott Valley, as you may be aware, is receiving about $1.2 million a year. Here's maybe a news flash if you haven't heard, it just came out just here in the last few weeks. With the new infrastructure bill, that's going to be increasing now to $2.3 million for the next 5 years. So again, transit's a real priority for a number of reasons. There has been some one-time funding that has been provided for, again, Prescott and Prescott Valley at $3.5 million. SIMPO, in light of all that's happening with Prescott Valley, with transit, with funding, has expanded our staff from a big staff of 3 to 4. Our fourth staff member is here, Kimberly Blanco. She is our transit planner. She is going to serve, really, if you will, as an extension of your transit program. So bringing Kimberly on, we want to be able to plan to work with you in partnership. And we know that you've hired a transit manager in Pedro Rodriguez. So we want to complement the work that he and Norm and staff are doing with planning. So that's what we're doing with Kimberly. Also, I'm going to be taking this to the board in a few weeks, but there is a grant opportunity for us to bring in some additional funds. And what we would like to do with that is a regional transit marketing plan, which we believe will help the town of Prescott Valley out to be able to engage the public, to promote, but we'll also be able to help Chino Valley with Yavapai Regional Transit and so forth. My last slide is we are pursuing some one-time funding from the state legislature. This is an opportunity. Our advocacy, or our lobbyist, is the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. And that it's RTAC for short. They work with the 10 MPOs and COGs in greater Arizona, or basically outside Phoenix and Tucson. If successful, SIMPO will receive about $4 million. The executive board, along with the TAC and staff, have identified these 3 projects that we have listed on here, which I've talked about today. Sundog Connector, the 89A eastbound on-ramp project, and then the 69-169 roundabout construction. So with that said, I'd like to wrap up and again thank the service of Mayor Palguda for serving as our chair. Appreciate those council like Councilwoman Dickinson when she's able to attend, and the support that we receive. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm happy to take questions or comments.
I think I just want to say I appreciate what you and your staff do. I mean, I know you just increased by 25%, it looks like, but it's a tiresome job that you guys do, and a lot of people take it for granted, but you're leading us into the future when it comes to connectivity throughout our region, and it's so important. So I just want to say keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Biddy, I just want to thank you because you're very responsive when I have a question, and I appreciate that. And I especially want to give a shout out to our mayor for not only loving Prescott Valley, but caring regionally that he's going to be a 2-time chairperson of SIMPO during one of the most important times for that Sundog connector and all the other projects you have going. So thank you very much.
Do you have anything else for Mr. Gallegos? Sir, thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Moving on, item 3E, revised town council meeting agenda format. Fatima, will you be taking us on this one?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, before Fatima starts, if I could do a shout out real quick. Fatima and our town attorney, Ivan Legler, have done just a phenomenal job at taking this on. And this is all in alignment with our strategic plan and how do we kind of make some updates to different things and look at, new opportunities. And these two jumped right in and did an extensive amount of research and tweaking and modifying and going back to the drawing board multiple times. So really appreciate the work that went into this, and I think it's really exciting for not only the council, but really some of the things for the public as well. So
good evening, everyone, and I'll make this quick because we all want to go home. All right, so I have amendments to Article 204, and on your staff report, it talks about our council procedures, like our meeting times and our special meetings and our quorums and all that stuff. What I'm going to focus on today is something really exciting that I've been working on, which is the order of business, which relates to our agenda templates. So those are some of the changes that we've been doing. And before going into this project, we ended up researching, Gilbert and I, lots of municipalities in the state of Arizona. We have a stack of agendas, staff reports, and minutes, because we wanted to see what everybody else was doing. And we looked into municipalities like Chandler, Gilbert, Marana, Sedona, Flagstaff, Kingman, Scottsdale, and even our neighbors, Prescott and Chino Valley. And from this research, we came to find 4 common denominators on their agendas. 1, they had some sort of cover page. 2, they all had their logo. 3, all of them had their names of their council members. And 4, they all had some sort of clean format, and it was a professional looking document. So, as you all know, here's our current agenda template. It has all the basic information required to meet open meeting law, so there's nothing wrong with it. But here's what I came up with. Something more nicer looking. Okay, so, and I'll be going over to the changes that I've made. So for starters, you can see our logo, and I know this will change once we have our new logo. The meeting notice, that stays the same, and here's all of your guys' names. It was either this or a picture of you guys. We can still change this, up to you. The title will either read work study or regular council meeting. We have the date. And the first paragraph here will talk about notice to the public that we're having a meeting and where to get copies of the agenda. The second paragraph on our cover page is something that I thought was pretty cool, which allows you to recess into an executive session on any item listed on the agenda without having to call a different special meeting or having to set up a different meeting at a different time just to go over an executive session. This already is our notice to the public that on any item listed or attached to that agenda, we can go into an executive session to, discuss items with Ivan. Our third paragraph, viewing and participation, allows citizens or would tell citizens how they can view the meeting or participate during the meeting, gives them some sort of instructions. Sorry, I kind of had to cut the picture in half, so we already did viewing and participation on this side. And then this paragraph here will talk about our meeting protocol, letting citizens know that at any time during our meeting, we can move agenda items as we determine appropriate. And this is also something new. We added the email feature. I know you already receive emails, but this is targeted to comments on specific agenda items. And if I do get them before 5 p.m., then I'll be able to forward it before the meeting. I'll be able to forward those comments to you for review. And then just ADA, an ADA notice, so that way citizens know if they need accommodations, how they can request those. So this is our cover page. Now, we're going to see something that I wanted to bring up that I thought was also pretty cool. Under viewing and participation, I added the links to our official Facebook page, YouTube page, or the town's website. And I know there's a whole bunch of Facebook pages, and I know there's a whole bunch of YouTube pages. This will take them straight to our Facebook page. I know that probably in February or so, we're going to start live streaming our meetings there, so they can just click there and find our page and see our meeting. Or they can also do click on our town's website link here, and it will read the event, and it's in progress, so you just click here and then we'll be able to see ourselves, but I'm not going to do that right now. So just wanted to bring attention to this paragraph. All right, so other changes that we did to our agenda template, so this will be the second page to our agenda. We also noticed that call to order and roll call in most municipalities was already combined because it's already one thing. I don't see the point of keeping both of them two separate bullet points, so we've combined that. We did the same thing with invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to continue to have our proclamations, as we currently do, our service awards for employee recognition, and our scheduled announcements. This would be like our public presentations like the Chamber of Commerce, the Student of the Month, so on. But we moved call to the public first, because I know there was concern that citizens couldn't really comment on any items, and the only chance they had was already after the item was already voted on. So we moved this to fix that problem and let them be able to do that beforehand. Then we have council communications, same as usual. And this is also new, manager's report. This will be a section where Gilbert will be reporting to you on items. Regular bullet points that we have are our consent agenda, old business, new business, and we're going to adjourn the meeting. So this is our agenda. Now we got to look at our staff report, because it all comes together. It comes in threes. So from our research, first of all, I'm proud to say that it's not going to be called staff report. Instead of the RFCA, that a lot of people did not know what an RFCA was, So now it's just going to be the staff report, because that's what it is. Keep it simple. The date, too, will always be to mayor and council through Gilbert, because anything we do goes through his supervision to you guys. So from, for example, would be Casey Van Haren, Director, Department, Community Services. The agenda type, whatever it is. The subject, that will be the title of the agenda. And let's say Bobby is presenting, then it will be presented by Bobby Kieran, Deputy Community Services, Community Services Deputy. But I want to bring attention to our strategic plan focus area. And this is how anything that we do from now on will be focused on our strategic plan. So departments will either put in our focus area or the goal that they're working on for whatever agenda item they submit. And this is actually something that a lot of municipalities already had, which I thought, was pretty cool. Same thing, similar summary background, recommended motion, this is your motion language, staff recommendation, that's not changing, fiscal analysis, how it impacts our budget, and then the attachments. I don't know if you noticed, but I got rid of something called option analysis, because that was also a combination of a motion and the staff recommendation. So keep it simple. Lastly, here's how our minutes are going to look. The layout looks nicer, and it has our logo. This gives you a better view of how the order of business is going to take place, and that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Adam, great job.
Very good.
It's a long time coming. It just creates more of a professional document that works for everyone, not only the citizens, but staff and council as well.
And
so great job.
And it fixes a couple of things like comments from the public.
Sure. No, absolutely. So again, great job. And Ivan, great job on doing what you do there. So appreciate you. Do you have anything else for Fatima?
Real quick, on the council meeting agenda under email, where it says, emails sent after the deadline will be disregarded and not be included in the public record.
That was part of the old template. It's fixed in here.
So you deleted that?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good.
I'm sorry. I'm pointing at the screen. I know you guys have
I didn't think
your
that was
monitor.
right. Okay.
Councilwoman?
So with the implementation of Facebook Live, that's going to open it up to comments from people who are watching. Is there any notice maybe that they can be? Well, I mean, it would be hard to have someone watching that while the meeting is going on and then, getting the information. So step one would be letting people know, yeah, feel free to comment and we can get those comments to the council in the future. But I just don't want people to think that, oh, well, I'm writing my comments. How come they're not answering or responding or whatever the case may be?
On real time.
Right.
We can definitely add in something in there saying live comments on Facebook can't necessarily be addressed during the meeting.
Yeah, will not be notified. Council will not be notified at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's a disclosure they can put on the title of the video or something when it goes live. Yeah.
We can figure something out. But yeah, that's a very good point. We don't want to set up a false expectation that you guys are going to be tweeting and Facebooking. So
open meeting law.
Sorry, Gilbert, what's an example of a conditional approval?
From that, you're talking about this from the staff report? So it could be, you could have something with a planning project that may have a, recommended approval, but it's contingent upon.
Based on conditions.
A few things, yeah.
And then we're not going to change the fiscal analysis that Katie's done that says, was it in the budget, was it not in the budget? Okay, cool. Because I like that a lot.
Yeah, her, just for the instructions for staff to use, this is also a link that takes them straight to her chart that she created.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, were we going to show, like where we have the strategic plan focus area, are we going to have the general plan one in there too when we meet one of our general plan goals?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, we can certainly add, if it's something that's tied to the general plan. The challenge with the general plan is there's so many components to it. But we'll continue to kind of think through how we can make sure we have that linkage.
Just the very last thing, we will be adopting this as an emergency adoption on December 9, and our first new template can be for the meeting on the work study on January 6th and the regular meeting on January 13th.
And let me just mention something about that. I found out today that 2 of you won't be here on the 9th. And so technically, to adopt something as an emergency, we've got to have 6 of you here. Now, we have a resolution in place from the pandemic that temporarily gives us authority to let you attend electronically and participate electronically. This change in the code is going to make that permanent so that we'll be able to have you participate electronically. So this will be an interesting experience for us, because I'd like for one of you to at least to try to connect with us electronically so that we could actually have that vote as an emergency measure. So
that's good, Roger.
I'll do it.
Councilwoman Hepperly is going to be in another country. So
okay.
better than we get you to do it.
You're gone too.
No, I'm got it. My wife's got it.
All right, perfect.
And then the other thing, just to let you know, in terms of the amendments, I appreciated Carol's work, as always, in putting that together. You saw a lot of scratch-outs and inclusions. The truth is we're not changing really very much. It's mostly clarification. One thing that we kind of fell into was a habit of having 4 of you sign every time we had a special meeting. That really isn't necessary. So we won't be doing that anymore. But there is this mechanism in place where, and this has never happened in my time, where a council person really wanted something on an agenda and the mayor and manager who control the agenda said, no, we're not going to put it on. That's never happened. But if that were to ever happen, if that were to be there, there's always been this mechanism in place where 4 council people could, in writing, request a special meeting for a particular item or items. One of the questions we've always had is, how do 4 of you decide to do that without running the risk of an open meeting law violation? So we finally said, you know what, why don't we change that to 3? And so that's one of the things that's happening in this amendment. And finally, something that I always worried about is we don't follow it slavishly, but we do like to refer to Robert's Rules of Order from time to time. Right. And somehow we lost that out of the code. It wasn't in there. So we're putting it back so that we have some reference to Robert's Rules. But that's essentially what's going on with the amendment that we'll take on next time.
Anything else to add? We're adjourned. We don't do votes.